How's it going? It's Nick's forecast. It's February 2nd, and talking to all you people out there in the real estate world, investors, buyers, sellers, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, insurance people, title insurance, whatever, real estate. Especially talking to the first-time buyers, people wanting to buy. Anyway, I just keep reading these weird articles lately. Right, talking about the top cities around that went up 20% in real estate. They were Miami and Tampa Bay, and also to the Phoenix area. And Phoenix area is pretty big, like all the other areas, like Tampa Bay and Miami. And it's interesting to see. But also, I'm reading all these other articles about real estate in general. But there's one thing I know, that there's always a market, and I really don't care how big the market's going up or what's going on or whatever. There's always a market. And a lot of times in these markets that keep going up and up and up, a lot of times things are defined into kind of certain areas, but not all areas in a particular county are going to be hit. Or you go further out and going to be areas. And a lot of time people are buying location for whatever reason, social status, school, blah, blah, whatever. But there's always a market for real estate. There's always going to be a market. Now, there something interesting Tom Ferry said the other day, who's a trainer, or actually he said it today on a video that I watched, and he was talking to this lady that lives in Savannah, Georgia, who's owns a Remax company, and she's got a pretty big team, I guess, and she did a lot of deals. But one thing is that there was about 123 million homes, basically, that I think the National Association of Realtors did some study. 40% of them were owned basically with no mortgage on it, which is cool. And I saw the same similar thing on another article last couple weeks ago. So, but even with that, that means there's still a market. And so, even though in certain areas there's less housing, that's not true all over the United States. And so, if you're a buyer and investor, there's always a market out there. Even if you're going to sell your property, there's still a market. And so, and don't get tripped up about everything and get caught up in what I call the chaos of all the stuff that's being put out there. Because a lot of times it's inaccurate, and a lot of times it's just defined by certain areas. Like in Seattle area, you have different sections of Puget Sound, but there's only certain areas where the markets are going up a lot faster than others. And you're reading stories about people paying dollars overpriced for a property, but the property that happened just recently, a few weeks ago in the article, that was in the Seattle Times. It made national news, and it was on Drudge, these other places, Fox Business. But that was in a specific area across Seattle, about 5 minutes to half hour away on I-90, and it was in one part of what they call Bellevue. And Bellevue is one of the richest in the United States, like Seattle. And Bellevue's a lot of the billionaires live there. You got Bezos and Gates, and the rest, a lot of them live there. Anyways, so Obama lived there over there too. Still has a house there if he's not living in L.A. Anyways, so there's one part of Bellevue a lot of people want to live, the schools, blah 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 blah, the social status. So people are willing to pay that price over it, but there's still a lot of other areas where the housing's not like that, and so it's a lot of it's a misnomer. I mean, that's just one small geographic area, but there's always a market. And even in those areas, there's always a market. Someone's always buying, someone's always willing to sell, and they're going to sell for whatever reason. They're going to buy for whatever reason. Commercial real estate can kind of follow that a little bit because they follow demographically where things are going, but there's still always a buyer and seller for a market, and that's just kind of the way it is. And so, like I said, don't get caught up in too much in that. There's always a market for whatever's going on in your area. And since the United States is a big place, you got a lot of country and suburban areas outside of cities and different counties outside where, the markets are moving more steadily. And certain areas where rents are going way up, but there's certain areas where rents are stagnating. In certain areas where rents are going up a little bit, but they're still kind of even out. So it just depends on where you live, and they're all variables. So that's just remember that in mind. And also too, remember the big factor, I keep saying this, and I'll always keep harping this, it's all about finance. If you're an investor or a buyer, especially an investor, the biggest thing you need to learn is finance. And that's finance. We're doing commercial real estate and residential, and they're completely different beasts. But if you learn the finance game, uh, that's where you really work it. That's how you become the player, is learning the finance game. And you have a lot of these people out there doing videos and stuff and talking about buying zero down and doing this and doing this and this and this, and go to your title company, this and that. Great. But I've seen a lot of videos, a lot of these guys out there doing it, which I'm all for doing it because you're making money, selling your seminars and doing your stuff. Cool. Awesome. I'm all for it. But a lot of times, a lot of people don't know that much about finance. They just, you know what I mean? They learn the game differently and they have their own way to do it. But a lot of them, you know, might have picked up some house somewhere or this and this and that. And they got it dirt cheap, might have picked up a tax auction. And I still say tax auctions, they happen once a year. You need to look and start looking at those. I don't care where you live. I don't care how hot the area is. Start looking at tax auctions. Indianapolis last year, just the city of Indianapolis, in the city itself, they had 123 pages worth of basically auctions, residential and commercial. So when I'm saying not national, Memphis had a lot too. Kansas City, Oklahoma City, St. Louis. I mean, I'm just making up city names, but all this is true because I looked at a lot of them. So, anyways, even on the West Coast, East Coast, Northeast, Southeast, doesn't matter where you live. There's always that you need to look at. But cash is king, but also too being able to finance is king, especially if you're doing if you're buying houses and you're holding on to them and you're refinancing them out. That's a way you can make some serious cash doing that. Put it in your pocket and get out around the taxes. I used to do this all the time. Grant Cardone talks about it. That's why he's able to buy his jet, his new 650 LR. I think it was LR. Yeah. Anyways, Gulfstream. Probably going to buy his 700 before you know it. It was just came out this last year. Anyway, so these are things you think about. But finance is the key to the game. And if you learn the financial part of it and how to get around and doing deals, that's how you can get creative, is with the financing, seller carrybacks, a lot of stuff I'm talking to you. So what I'm saying to you is there's always a market out there, because if you know the finance game, you can work it. And so your goal as investors, put the least amount of cash out and basically do enough you have to fix up your property if you need to, and then go ahead and run it out or flip it out again. And make sure no prepayment penalties on your product. Also, too, another thing, investor out there, you need arms. A lot of banks will have. You can get this information from title companies. You can see what arms are popping up on a 1, 3, and 5 year. And if you're a mortgage broker, you're hitting that action, so you can refinance it. That's a good deal. Real estate agent, some people with arms, they may want to sell out because they made some profit margin, so you can get lists from title companies, which you can get it and start make a postcard and saying, hey, your thing's coming due. Have you thought about listing? Especially you want to look for people coming due with 3 and 5 year arms. And also, too, if you're an investor, you can start looking people with 3 and 5 year arms. 1 year probably not as good, or 2 year, but a 3 and 5 year arms, 7 year arms too. I almost forgot. You can start looking at that too, because people on there sometimes want to sell out. So these are just different markets you can exploit. And even with all the different marketing things out there with the internet, old school still does work, and you can still work it to your advantage. So anyways, that's what I wanted to say today, that there's always a market out there. Even though Russia's already invaded, they started into the eastern Ukraine. If they go into western Ukraine and go into Kiev and start really out, because Ukraine's a big country. And they've got 50 million people around there, 45 to 50 million, but it's a big country, and you never know what's going to go or what's going to happen. So it can affect a lot of things. Interest rates can go up. They're having their meeting here in March, 16th, 17th, and basically that's where they go ahead and they're going to put their beige book out. It's really boring to read, but it talks about whatever they're going to talk about, because they're going to have to raise the rates. And basically, The rates will skyrocket if the Russians start to invade and other European countries have to get involved. It turns in from basically a regional war into a major regional war. It gets spreads out into a war all over Europe and turns into a world war. And so a lot of things can affect a lot of things. So these are things you need to have, but there's still going to be a market, even when things turn over. There's going to be a market, even though the market plunged 400 points last time I looked today, but there's still going to be a market, and if you need to still know finance, and so you still need to know how to do this stuff. And the problem is that as an investor buyer, a lot of times you're going to learn this on your own, and most people are going to teach a lot of these people if they're talking about buying zero down and all this other stuff. You're going to need some cash because if you're buying a commercial property or residential down or earnest money agreement, even if you put down a promissory note, it says you're still going to have to put some earnest money at the end of closing. And closing costs depends on how the deal's rigged. The loan you get, you may not be able to do it unless you're buying your property cash. Commercial, same thing. It's nice. Some lenders of commercial do 1% to 2%. Pretty rare. Most of the time you got to pay your own fees. So closing cost fees. Anyway, so these are just things to look at, and that's why I'm bringing all this stuff up. So you have a way to look at different aspects of doing real estate. But like I said, there's always a market, and finance is the key to the game. And so if you remember those things, you're good to go. Anyways, got any questions, go to nickforecast.com, go to nickforecast.com, or go to Facebook at nickforecast. Have a great day. Ciao.